sharing. Durian ASEAN.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene, and of course, thanks for accepting our interview at Durian ASEAN. First of all, perhaps a bit of a background on the research itself, which is about making housing affordable. Perhaps we can have Dato Charon to explain, and also maybe proceed by Dr. Suraya.
Thank you. Thank you for having us on the show, and to talk a little bit about the book. The book is called Making Housing Affordable, and it's part of our general research program on cities. When we came out with our last book on the state of households, one of the things we identified in terms of household expenditure is expenditure on housing. So, the two biggest components of most households' expenditure is food and housing. So clearly, if you want to look at household incomes, you also should look at household expenditures, and to look at household expenditures, you look at a big chunk of it, which is housing. So that's what we did, and my colleagues have been working on it for quite some time in looking at the issue.
And because of that, you come up with a focus on housing policy.
That's right. Sorry, I lost track of it. We're looking at how to make housing affordable, and of course, this report tries to do three things. It tries to say, first of all, what is the problem? So is there a housing affordability problem? Secondly, if there is a problem, what is causing those problems? And thirdly, can we do anything about those problems? So in terms of looking at whether there is a problem, the data we have seems to show there is one. But we have to be slightly careful about the data.
The data you have, meaning the current study, or prior to this you have done some basic study about it?
Both, actually. We've been, the authors of this book have been studying it for a while, and
This is before the Primas or all these housing packages.
Yes. Dr. Suraya, who led the project, to write this book, has been looking at construction industry, housing for some time, and she has a PhD in the subject. So we looked at it and tried to see what is the state of house prices and housing in Malaysia. So we talked about affordability, and affordability isn't just the price of the house, but it's also the price of the house relative to income. So if you look at Malaysia as a whole, and that's it's a big country. If you look at Malaysia as a whole, the median house price in Malaysia is 4.4 times the median household income in Malaysia, which is, by international standards, makes it unaffordable. In fact, it makes it seriously unaffordable. Seriously unaffordable.
But just to when you say that, I'm just wondering, is it like a regional trend, or is it just within Malaysia, or is it a global trend right now, like majority of the household are unaffordable or seriously unaffordable?
That's a really good question, and it depends on the country, obviously, and depends on the place, because again, even if you look at Malaysia, it's not every state which has a problem with affordability. Malacca, for example, has what is called an affordable housing market, because it's the median house price there is 3 times the median household income. So Malacca is considered an affordable market. On the other hand, markets like Kuala Lumpur and Penang are severely unaffordable. It's well over 5 times. So the issue is not, it's hard, we can't really look at Malaysia as a whole, because we have quite specific housing markets.
But I want to go back to the housing policy in Malaysia, because maybe Dr. Suraya can explain further. The thing is, for a long time, people have seen it as a social welfare issue, like, the government is not providing enough welfare to the people. Maybe the government, 11, 10 Malaysia plan didn't include enough of housing to the rakyat. But you try to, you make a claim that let's just look at this as an economic problem. Maybe we are not really efficient enough in terms of our economic activity when it comes to housing. What do you want to say about it?
Basically, that is the general thesis of this report, is that we have to reconsider housing as a proper economic sector, and that it has serious repercussions on income, on population, as well as government fiscal policies. So in that sense, if we can make the housing sector more efficient, it will help many other sectors, as well as have the multiplier effect of making more things better. For example, that is why we feel that if you keep on subsidizing housing without really looking at the efficiency of the sector, you are basically subsidizing an uneconomic, unproductive sector. So this is not the way in which we want to make sure that improvements are being made for the housing sector. So we are saying, let's get away from housing as a social welfare issue, but make it a productive economic sector. This is what the report is saying.
But when you say economy, that means there's something wrong in our economic structure when it comes to selling and buying houses. What kind of model we are following actually?
Okay. Basically, what we are trying to do now is that first we look at the supply of housing. The national business system is highly fragmented. When it is highly fragmented, it does not bring the highest opportunity for productivity gains or to make it efficient and therefore more responsive to the demand. So if you're talking about demand and supply model, basically what we want is a responsive supply sector, meaning the supply curve must be more elastic. If you have a supply curve which is totally inelastic for certain product ranges, this will make it very, very expensive whenever there's a demand of a certain product range. So this is a problem for our
So when
country.
you say supply curve, sorry, I have to put it in a layman's point of view. So are you saying that they don't supply based on demand, they supply based on what?
So basically,
Exactly?
so basically, when we have a unit supplied, in our report we showed that there are many units being supplied, but these are units at the high end of.
So they are only supplying for a small fragmented group of society.
At the higher income. So when we say 3 times the median market, we mean that the housing sector, the housing supply sector, they must produce units in a range whereby the market median is 3. But this market median 3 means that it follows the household distribution of the population.
But isn't this, sorry, I have to ask you again, because isn't it against the principle of free market? Because free market is all about supply and demand, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. No, it is.
It seems like there's something, in the loophole, and anyone you can answer, that is trying to curb the demand.
No, it's not. We're not advocating any kind of price controls or anything like that. But what we're saying is that normally when demand increases for a product, prices can go up. But usually what happens is people who sell that product will produce more of the product so that to meet the added demand, and so the price of the product doesn't go up very much. For example, if suddenly people want more cars, the car factory will just produce more cars and car prices don't go up, right? Because more cars are made to meet the increased demand for cars. But because the way our housing market works, houses take such a long time to build and to be supplied that when people want more houses, there are no new houses coming in. So all the prices of existing houses, the prices of everything just goes up. So if we had a more responsive housing sector which could produce a supply in a better way, then we wouldn't see prices going up so fast. And that's what we're advocating in the report, and the work which Dr. Suraya and Nadia and Marjan have done is to look at how this can be done.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Good morning, this is Arlene, and of course you are still with us, Dato Charon and Dr. Suraya, as well as Intan, Nadia, Jalil, discussing on the latest book launched by Khazanah Research Institute called Making Housing Affordable. So moving on, let's focus on the report. And perhaps you can shed light on some of the interesting information, because yesterday when I was at the press conference, I can attest that there's a lot of interesting facts about Malaysia, especially on the local or state level housing market. Seems to be very fragmented and very different, the problems that they face.
So basically the report is trying to say that basically all this while we have a very fragmented national business system whereby production of houses has been done in a very sequential manner, and in each process is being owned by different firms. So in this sense, it's very difficult to produce efficient and to instill innovation in the production process because nobody wants to own that innovation. So what we're trying to do now
Why nobody wants to own that innovation?
Because because the point of the matter is that how do you make sure that people would be accountable for that innovation, whereas when they are all in different firms. So that's the fragmented nature of the national business system. So what we're saying now is consolidate the production chain, and therefore it will then have one owner of the innovation. So
you want to answer?
Just to add, so just to illustrate Suraya's point, in Malaysia, for example, if we're talking about industrialized building systems, IDS technology, we prefabricate the house components, in a factory and then assemble it on site. What happens is that the design, Suraya can correct me if I'm wrong, because she used to be a practitioner in the industry. You then assemble it on site. So what happens is that the designer themselves will design the system and the contractor will assemble it. And so when it comes to the innovation, we don't know who really wants to own that innovation. If the designer can own just the design, but is not quite responsible for the assembly, and the contractor is not quite responsible for the design, then you don't have this flexible communication between both the designer and the contractor. So in that sense, then that's why sometimes our developers run into difficulties when it comes to implementing these technologies.
I see. Is that the reason why houses are expensive?
the point of the matter is now is that, for example, if you do have innovation, if you do have product improvement, houses will take less time to be built, say from 2 years to 6 months. Construction costs will go down. These are the reasons why we are advocating consolidation of the national business system.
Okay. So I want to put more focus on different state, because I mean I would assume KL would be like the worst or severely. But someone, there's this state, Terengganu actually, kind of beat Kuala Lumpur, which is kind of an irony. I'm just dumbfounded. Like maybe you can shed light why Terengganu. And besides that, even Sabah is on the top 4 lists, right, of severely unaffordable.
That's right. So I think we have to start by looking at the type of housing there is in Malaysia. According to the Department of Statistics, there are about 7.3 million houses in Malaysia. Well, these people say, there are 7.3 million houses in Malaysia because that's where people live. According to the National Property Information Centre, there are only 4.3 million houses. So that's a 3 million house difference. And the reason there is a difference is that the National Property Information Centre only looks at formal housing. Formal housing is housing where you've got certificate of fitness with development order and things like that.
So the rumah kampung doesn't qualify.
That's right, rumah kampung doesn't qualify. So
Setinggan as well.
Yeah, but actually the Setinggan problem is not as large as it was anymore. In fact, in Kuala Lumpur, I don't think there's any more rumah Setinggan. But so going back to somewhere like Terengganu, for example, so most of the houses in Terengganu are not formal housing, it's informal housing. So if you look at Terengganu, only 22% of their housing is formal housing. So that means what we're really looking at is the housing market in Kuala Terengganu and 1 or 2 other towns. So you can't compare the income of the whole population of Terengganu against house prices just in one town or two towns in Terengganu, because that's not a fair comparison. So of course, as a whole, Kuala Terengganu looks really unaffordable, but the reality is that most people don't require formal housing in Terengganu. The best examples are those which are more urbanized. So for example, Kuala Lumpur, Pulau Pinang, and the other states you mentioned. So when we did our study in terms of looking at what are affordable and unaffordable houses, what we did was just look at those markets which had more than 60% formal housing. So,
And which state would that be?
so those are the states which are in our book. So it's Kuala Lumpur, Pulau Pinang, Johor, Selangor, Negeri Sembilan, and Melaka. And within that, there's a range. So Melaka, as I said earlier, is affordable.
Which is also something of something new to us. I mean, who knows, right?
Yeah, it is, because
I thought with all the construction. And
that's right, but I know. I mean, obviously, household incomes in Melaka are reasonably high, and house prices are reasonably low. Yeah, and then then after that it's Selangor and Negeri Sembilan, and then after that is Johor, and then after that the highest is KL and Pulau Pinang. And
but all this, I mean, even though you have like a range in terms of severely unaffordable to is still affordable, but the reason for them to be either unaffordable or affordable are totally different, or it follows similar pattern.
I think the economic reason we believe is the same, which is that we have an unresponsive supply sector. So because it's unresponsive, when demand increases, instead of there being more houses to meet the increased demand, house prices just shoot up instead. So that's but in each state there are obviously specific reasons about which developer did what or which land price went up. But the general economic explanation behind it, we think, is the same economic explanation.
I see.
So when you ask why is housing so expensive, the economics answer is we have a vertical supply curve. What does that mean in non-economic terms? It means that not enough new houses are being built to meet the increased demand, or not new houses are being.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene and you are listening to Durian ASEAN. And welcome back. You are still with Dato Charon and Dr. Suraya speaking about affordable housing.
Do you think that actually if you solve it in an economic perspective, even without government's help or government's policy on housing, it would actually make the change much more efficient?
I guess it depends what we mean by government help. If it's government giving cash subsidies, then there's a limit to how much subsidy.
Building houses.
Yeah, even if government builds houses and sells it at below market prices or takes a loss, then there's a limit to how much government can spend. Because it's one thing to look after the low-income population who really can't afford a house and provide them social housing. But we're looking at up to the 80% of the population not being able to afford a house. We can't have subsidies for 80% of the population. So this is one of the things we're looking at in terms of policies, and maybe Suraya can expand a bit on the kind of government policies we're thinking about.
One of the things we are looking at, there's 3 policies here that we are recommending. Number one is basically to increase the responsiveness of the supply sector. So to what Dato Charon is saying is that we need to produce more houses in a more responsive manner. In a more responsive manner meaning we have to make sure that innovation, or in this case IBS or modular system or proprietary system, any system that increases the productivity, any system that reduces the time of construction, any system that reduces wastages. These are very important factors, underlying reasons why we adopt technology.
And right now we don't have any system. Sorry.
Right now the system resides in small firms in the material supply sector, and that's fragmented away from the designer and the contractor. So that's why the novel contribution of this report is saying that, look, you have all these fragmented businesses. Let's consolidate them in a structure that permits innovation. That's why this turnkey design and build with incentive pricing system, with competitive tendering is very important, because it tries to make all these firms come together, be bold and it permits innovation. The previous contract, the traditional general contracting, does not permit any innovation. It will be very costly because design and construct liabilities reside at two different parties or actors. The design responsibility and accountability resides with the designers. The structural engineers need to do up the system, the structural system, and then you have the IBS that's being added to it. So it doesn't make sense. The current procurement system that we are propagating is basically making sure that all these actors come together at the beginning of the construction stage and then plan for it, that it makes sense to employ that innovation and to construct and implement the innovation.
So basically you want everyone to sit on the table like, hey, let's have coffee, and then just...
Yes, we are providing the legalities for that, the legalities that you can innovate. Now, after that, once we have that innovation inbuilt in the production of housing, in time, housing will become more responsive and cheaper and faster to build. That would then alleviate the problem of an inelastic supply curve or unresponsive supply of housing into the market. Okay, so we have done that, but it needs these housing units that come out from this system must be insulated from the pressures of rapid price escalation. That is why in our second policy we say that housing units that come up from this governance structure, from this procurement method, must go through a moratorium, a 5-year moratorium. Because a moratorium is only as good as making sure that the next batch of housing that comes in comes at affordable prices. So therefore, speculative activities can't behave the way they do because there's no point anymore.
So by the way, moratorium is being defined as a waiting system, is it?
And that means for 5 years you can't sell your house.
You can't sell a house.
Unless you have good reasons. For example, you desperately need the money, or you're moving house because you got a better job.
Right now you can just buy it and sell it.
Right now you can. Except for certain prima housing, where it's a 10-year moratorium. So we're saying 5 years, and then what we're saying is that you don't have to have that 5 years forever. So after maybe a couple of years of doing the system, then we don't need moratoriums anymore.
I'm just surprised that we are not aware of this even until now.
Which one?
The moratorium period for majority of Malaysians.
No, there's none. Sorry, there's none. We're proposing it. We're proposing it. There's none. And to get everybody to adopt this system, we're proposing some kind of government policies, right?
Yes,
in terms of.
Okay, for example, the thing about making sure, how do you incentivize? Okay, how do you incentivize the supply chain or the developers to come into this system or this procurement route? So we are saying that for those developers that would want to be in the system, there will be some government incentives. For example, in terms of planning regulation, in terms of development costs. These are all costs within a development project. So it's like a quid pro quo. You do something good, then the government will help you. But you can't be helping someone who's not done any improvement in their production process. So that is why when we say we are subsidizing a non-efficient housing sector, is because we are subsidizing a housing sector that does not want to improve itself. So what we are saying now is, if I may be bold enough, that whenever government help a certain sector, that sector too must give something back to the government, which is make sure you do production innovation, as well as improving productivity. That's fair, I think. Now, having done that, then we do the moratorium. But the last one, which is equally important, is to have a proper integrated database to plan for demand and supply. Because putting in 80,000 units in KL, 20,000 units in Penang, out of the blue, it doesn't make sense. You will only contribute to even property glut.
You're right on it. Nowadays, if you look through the newspapers, suddenly they say that we are building, this X number of houses, just like that, just to fill in the supply and demand.
and this is the problem now, because even these numbers, what we want is a sustainable housing industry, meaning demand should come in at the opportune time so that it doesn't distort demand and supply in actual sense. So imagine that we have a proper system of planning based on demand and supply conditions where both consumers and developers would know. Can you imagine how good that would be for young families to plan, in 5 years' time, I'm going to buy a 250,000 house. They can save now. They can plan their lives better.
That is a great recommendation. But in the case of Southeast Asia, do we have example of countries that have implemented, or maybe outside of Southeast Asia, if just in case people are curious to know, like, if this plan works?
In terms of industrial build systems, yes, there are many examples. I mean, Singapore is one example. In the West, just about everywhere in the West uses it. So that system is being used. But as an example of what a truly unaffordable market is, look at Hong Kong. It's something like 16 times. 17 times. I'm so sorry. 17 times. So the median house price in Hong Kong is 17 times the median annual household income. I mean, that's it's even beyond severely unaffordable. It's beyond charge. So
and people are living in single cells.
That's right. So that's an example of what can happen if we don't plan things now. You know, we could get in a situation where housing really becomes beyond the reach of most people. And but you know, we think, and certainly my colleagues who've worked very hard on this, think that it can be done. Well, certainly something must be done.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene and you are listening to Durian ASEAN. And welcome back. You are still with Dato Charon and Dr. Suraya speaking about affordable housing.
Another global phenomena which is urbanization and early on off air, the gentrification of cities. Do you think with such in place, we can still have affordable housing? How?
Gentrification, I don't know, many meanings of gentrification. One meaning of gentrification is that you kick out the poor people and you move rich people inside, which is one meaning of gentrification, which probably is nice for rich people who move in.
That's kind of common right now. I mean, even in KL.
I don't know if it's common in KL, but certainly, I mean, Dr. Suraya has been working on this project in Penang, city, where gentrification didn't mean kicking out poor people and moving in rich people, right? It means redoing the area. And in fact, she's coming out with a report on.
Yes, I am.
On what happened in Penang.
I see.
In the Sing City. That was a smaller scale project, but it demonstrated that it can be done. But you know, a city to be vibrant needs all kinds of people there. Right? I mean, sure, we can have a city with just rich people living in $1 million houses, but it would be a very nice city.
But it doesn't make sense for developer, right? For them to develop low-cost housing in an urban city, catering towards the lower income group rather than the rich.
Well, this is the 8990. The 8990 example, I think, shows that.
The one in the Philippines.
Yeah, the one in the Philippines is that you can make money in many different ways. You can make money from selling high-end property, not a limited number of high-end properties sold to rich people, or you can also make it by selling lots of property at a much lower cost to many people. So it doesn't. There's not only one way to make money out of property development, and 8990 has, from a financial point of view, has very good profits. So you
give example of a bungalow with a swimming pool that costs 53,000 ringgit Malaysia.
It is. They built 2-bedroom houses. There's two bedroom houses, but the swimming pool is not just for one house. No. It's for the development. But the point is, it's not other places. You need a gated development before you can have a swimming pool.
So I thought it's just for myself.
No. Wow, if that were the case, that would be truly a true miracle. No, it's not quite miraculous, but yeah.
But I mean, I share that piece of example to a few of my younger friends, and to them that is really affordable. I mean, especially for young Malaysian, I'm sure owning a house, at least in the Malaysian culture, owning a house is like one step in terms of achieving success in life. So do you advocate owning a house, if in that case, just to, I guess, sideline a bit?
Okay, that's another interesting question. At the moment we've written this book on the basis, the book's come on the basis that for most people they want to buy a house, and how do we make it more affordable for them? Your question seems to be, should people buy a house or just rent
Yeah, just like
just rent forever. This is a debate which even amongst ourselves we have not settled. I'm going to exercise.
Have to go into philosophy.
Yeah. No, it's not. Yeah, it's philosophical and all kinds of other things. Yeah, and it's an economics and financial discussion. But there are two ways of looking at it. One way is that if you own the roof over your head, then whatever happens, at least you'll have the roof over your head. Even when you retire or you lose your job, you'll have a roof over your head, which is how most Malaysians think, and most people around the world think like that, right? So nothing is more secure than having a roof over your head. The other way of looking at it is that don't mix up financial investment with the roof over your head. So pay rent, and the money you save from paying the installment, invest it in some other diversified asset class, and maybe that will be a better investment in the long run than the roof over your head. But we can have a long debate about this. Dr. Suraya disagrees with me.
I believe the former, not the latter.
Suraya disagrees with me, and I feel the other way. And one of our projects will be to examine whether if you bought a house 20 years ago, if one person bought a house and one person rented a house and invested it in a mutual fund or a amanah saham, who would be better off after 15 years? Well, that one we'll see. We'll see. But generally, the issue which everybody, the point is that people spend a lot of their income on housing. And I'm talking, when I say people, I mean the people in the between the median household 50% mark. Very wealthy people can take care of themselves, so we don't have to be too concerned about them. But so we've got to make it affordable for everyone.
And my last question, I think the recommendation that you gave is great, but I think in Malaysia, probably also problems all over the world, is political will. So what is your next step? How are you going to persuade those actors that should be involved in trying to change this economic structure of the housing policy?
Dr. Suraya is very persuasive. So she will be meeting with both property developers and relevant government officials, the government officials in charge of housing, and other organizations like CIDB and other interest organizations, and we hope to be able to persuade people that this is the right way to go. We received valuable feedback already yesterday. We had a roundtable discussion with some leading members of the industry, and we will continue doing so, and with the assistance of people like yourself in making sure that this message,
that you will make profit, don't worry.
message will go out, hopefully, that we can change. We're not saying that we should we're not saying government should do everything or nationalize everything or stop people making a normal profit. Something can be done.
Thank you, Dato' Charon, Dr. Suraya, and Miss Intan Nadia Jalil. Thank you.